Judge Joe Brown's all-new barbecue sauce and seasoning. Justice in the form of flavor.
Law firms will take this as a retainer.
What? It must be a law firm where they hungry as hell. Now you gonna help me with this parole I'm dealing with?
Judge Joe Brown's all-new barbecue sauce and seasoning. Justice in the form of flavor. With one taste of our premium blends of all-natural ingredients, herbs, and spices, you'll fall in love with meat all over again. Judge Joe Brown's all-natural barbecue sauce collection is made up of 2 zesty flavors, original and spicy. There's only one way to bring order back to barbecuing. Just add Judge Joe Brown's all-natural barbecue sauce and seasoning, and you be the judge.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Let me know if you guys can hear me loud and clear. Let me know if you can hear me. Make sure there's no audio before we get into the show. We're going to have a good show. The judge is in queue, and we do have a guest. We have an attorney coming on to talk about the Fani Willis, Georgia committee hearing that took place today. And of course, we got to talk about the Bronx. Trump had a rally in the Bronx. They said it was 30,000 people that attended. And so we're going to get into that. And of course, Marilyn Mosby, she was sentenced today. She will not do any jail time. We're going to get into that and some other things. So happy Thursday. This is Man Up Thursday with The Real Dana and Judge Joe Brown. And you sound clear. Thank you, Katala. Hi, Southern Belle. So let's get started. Hi. Testing.
I hear you.
Okay. So I want to bring up the guest, attorney Mario Williams.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi, Mr. Williams.
Williams.
Williams. Never mind my accent. So
hey, how you doing?
Good. So today was the Georgia Senate hearing, and
Yes.
you represent L.A. Pink, but you also represent Amanda Tipson, correct?
That's right.
She is a former employee of Fani Willis DA office, and today she testified. That's what can I say?
He testified in the special Senate investigation. They held a hearing, I guess, not necessarily a hearing, but just to hear live testimony and take some evidence on the situation. And so she presented herself there to speak to the committee. There were Republican and Democrats there, senators, and they asked questions to her about the situation of her lawsuit, which is a whistleblower case against Fani Willis.
Okay. So before we get into that, just introduce yourself and tell us who you are. You are an attorney, but what kind of attorney?
My name is Mario Williams. I'm a constitutional rights attorney. I have a law firm called Humanity, Dignity, and Rights, HDR LLC. I was also an elected official here in Georgia. I was a city councilman for the city of Clarkston. I practiced overseas for a while, filing petitions against countries with the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. I did that for about 10 years. So I've done opponent research. In fact, a lot of the senators and stuff I know just from working with them on opponent research, all the way from the city level, Kasim Reed, Senator Ford, former Senator Senator Hardy Davis. So I just kind of been around this arena, and I lived abroad for about 10 years. I did Peace Corps in Central America, and then I lived and practiced human rights law in South America.
Okay. So, of course, you know Judge Joe Brown.
Everybody knows Honorable Judge Brown.
Okay, so
by the way, I have a referral for you. I'll talk to you about it later. It's from Cobb County and Fulton County.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Somebody needs assistance for extreme pattern and practice of violation of civil rights against this individual and quite a few others. So anyway, we'll talk later. Let's get into it.
Absolutely.
So today was the Senate Special Committee on Investigations is holding its fourth meeting. to hear testimony as part of his probe into the possible misconduct of the Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis. Now, she won the primary this past Tuesday. She did a victory speech as if she actually won the real election that's coming up in November. But she has a lot of legal issues coming her way, and this is one of them. But you represent Amanda Tipson and L.A. Pink, who we had on the show several times. But please speak to your client and today's hearing.
So Amanda Timpson, she was actually with the Paul Howard administration. And then when DA Willis defeated Paul Howard, she held a 8-9 panel interview process in which Amanda interviewed because her job was eliminated in the previous administration. And she was selected. Mr. Wade, that's been in the news a lot, was on that panel. It was Fani and then 7 other people. So she was put in as director of gang prevention. And, you know, she went through her process of working there. She started seeing some irregularities and saying, hey, look, this is a problem, to her immediate supervisor, a guy by the name of Mr. Cuffey. And she escalated it to Miss Willis, DA Willis. She got demoted. She continued to talk about certain issues, and then she got terminated. This lawsuit was actually filed almost 3 years ago. Because I do understand how things work, and I do know a lot of people around the city, I actually sent the lawsuit, and all the commissioners, Fulton County commissioners, knew about the lawsuit. Nothing came about it. Now, because of the whole issue with Trump and people politicizing everything, and suddenly this lawsuit popped up on everybody's map, you know, the commissioners, everybody. But the lawsuit has been outstanding for a while. We're in the discovery phase. And so the committee really asked for particular facts that demonstrate whistleblower and retaliation. So we gave them to them, and it'll take me nothing but 2 minutes to tell you. She starts complaining, saying, hey, look, you're trying to buy computers and you're trying to buy all this stuff, swag materials, pens, all that. But the OJDP grant, juvenile diversion grant, has a line item 0 on equipment. You can't do it. So she kept saying, look, you can't do it. Her immediate supervisor was getting upset. She thought Fani didn't understand what was going on. So she calls herself trying to report this to DA Willis to say, hey, look, this guy's going to put your administration in problems. Like, what's going on? So she actually tried to sit down with her and eventually got frustrated and wrote a text message that said to Fani's chief of staff, and said, hey, look, at this point, I have all kind of lawsuits against y'all for the way I'm being treated and just retaliation. So she got a meeting on that day. So that text message was around 11 o'clock in the morning, got a meeting on that day at 3 o'clock, 2 to 3 minutes. And she was immediately demoted and went from director to file clerk in the records restriction division. So
that
then
sounds like retaliation.
Exactly. See that, and see, this is the problem.
May I ask you a question here?
Sure.
Since come up, is this the same $500,000 that the Senate committee is wanting to question Ms. Willis about, that's supposed to have been for juvenile crime prevention, that sort of thing? That's tied in with that $2 million for the sex crimes setup that seems to have disappeared someplace.
But this is for the $488,000. For the programming to a center that was donated, and everyone's trying to figure out what happened to the programming on that side. And then the other issue is what I'm about to tell you about. So when she got demoted, she also, previous to talking about the $488,000, trying to use money for trips and swag materials, things that, because you have to remember, Ms. Timpson actually wrote the grant. She was a co-author of the grant. She knows it very well. There's what you call a junior DA program. The junior DA program brings in, and it literally says on the webpage, attending school must attend from Fulton County, must be Atlanta Public School student. Well, she said, hey, look, I know for a fact some of these kids that are participating in this program, they're not just not from Fulton County or Atlanta Public Schools, they're from a different state. Wisconsin, Florida, ends up being friends and family of people who are in Fani, who she referred to, according to Amanda, as her niece, but says it was just, that's how she treated her. But so she says, hey, look, you can't spend this money this way. It's on the webpage. It's in all the materials. Must be attending Fulton County Atlanta Public Schools. It's a grant that was given down to Fulton County. So for that, she went in November, had another meeting with DA Willis. And then this is the key. She goes in and tells her about it. They have an investigative branch in Fulton County called the Office of Diversity, Civil Rights, and Compliance. They say, well, you know, DA Willis says you never disclose anything because the big thing in whistleblower cases, as Your Honor knows, you got to disclose it. You have to have told somebody about it. And so Amanda, having been smart about this, she said, well, that's interesting that she would say I didn't disclose it to her because I recorded it. So here's the recording. So then fast forward about 4:30, she has a meeting with the DCRC director, right? But prior to this meeting, just a couple of hours, she had another meeting with one of Fani's main top, I think she's an ADA. And then she goes into the meeting with the DRC director, and get this, 20 minutes after, less than 30 minutes after she gets done with the director of the Diversity Council, Compliance Council, Fani terminates her. Has 7 security guards walk her out of the office.
That's the new thing. You get somebody who's in good standing one moment and then out, and they get escorted out like they're to be busted outside.
And here's what's interesting. What? Go ahead, Joe.
May I make a suggestion to you? During your discovery, you might ask for a trace of the monies. I have a sneaking suspicion that if you get
it's he's not at home, so I don't know if
that's freezing.
Yeah, he's freezing. If you could hear us, you just froze. Yeah,
and that you heard looks a lot like money laundering. And if you, in your discovery in this lawsuit, demand of the respondent, district attorney's office, and Fani, Ms. Willis, an accounting for the funds, which you can ask.
Yes, we have discoveries ongoing. We're definitely looking for a lot of information, but I think, yeah, definitely, I appreciate that, Your Honor. We are trying to get as much information as possible. I think one of the biggest things that came out of this hearing, and the only reason why Ms. Timpson showed up to the hearing is because a lot of false statements were being made about her character. For example, they were saying, hey, well, this is just a disgruntled holdover employee. She's not a holdover employee. She was selected by a 9-member panel. Okay. She has 24 letters of recommendation that we've already turned over, some of current employees in Fani Willis's department. She had 0 disciplinary track record before any of this started. And these were facts that the committee needed to hear because Amanda just got tired of her name being done. She had applied to 1,000 jobs just to try to get back on track. And DA Willis, I saw an email saying, well, I really didn't demote you because I didn't change your salary. You went from being a director of a program to a file clerk. You knocked her off her career path. That's retaliation. You're trying to destroy something that somebody worked a good portion of their life to build towards. And then you want to say, I really didn't do much to you because I didn't change your salary.
And this is from the person that's on the pulpits.
That's right.
Preaching about sister girl getting retaliated against because of white supremacy. And from what Miss Dana and I have been discovering since we've been doing some behind the scenes work up in Fulton County is that this whole sister girl thing is a bunch of tripe that covers just what looks to me in my 50 years of doing this like rank criminality. It's like she should have taken the Fifth Amendment or should have kept her behind off of the stand instead of walking in there hand on doing snake dance with her head and neck when she came in that hot pink red dress and started testifying. Looks to me like she incriminated herself pretty thoroughly, and this is just part of the big picture that needs to be painted for the public.
This is what I'll say, and I said this after they asked a question to Amanda, but I took the liberty to answer it. The media did after the hearing. And they said, well, Ms. Timpson, what do you say to people who say that you're being used as a pawn? And then this is my response. I said, look, there's a couple of things that you can't do. So you make the poor decision about the Mr. Wade scenario. That was your decision. That was a poor decision. Even if we don't believe there was a conflict, it was still a poor decision. It was a poor nepotism, basically. You're giving a high value dollar contract to somebody that you're in a relationship and that you denied being in a relationship before and then had to admit it. That's a poor decision that opened you up to a political arena that you understand how things go. Then you mistreat and engage in what I consider very unlawful conduct with Amanda Timpson. Now you want everybody to wipe your poor decision-making away, wipe your unlawful conduct away, because you're going to trot out race and you're going to trot out, oh, you're just a pawn for the Republican Party without taking any accountability for the wrong you've done, for the mistakes you made. And so what you should have done, see, this wouldn't even be an issue for any party had you taken accountability when you did it. Hey, I made a mistake. I got beside myself. I don't know what I was thinking. Let's resolve this, get this case out of the way and move forward. But you let it linger around, and now it's become an issue.
You know what? The way I look at it, if it gives you any help, is this. She actually makes things worse for herself by saying she had no initial affair with
That's right.
Wade.
Yeah, I don't know what is. We can't hear you.
I think
she campaigned against her predecessor, saying she was going to end this sexual misconduct in the DA's office. And from what I've seen of the billings that she approved, no one was over her to say yay or nay on what she approved for Wade, which last count was about $720,000. It looked like a scam to me, where a public official hired somebody that they could pay a great sum of money and then split the money with that person through kickbacks and do a lot of cash exchanges so that there would be no trail. Next thing that goes on is, from what we've been looking at, there's a lot.
I'll tell you something interesting about the oh no, he's back.
I don't think he sees that he's dropping in and out.
Okay. Well, I can tell you something interesting about, I'm going to end the sexual predator stuff of the former administration with the former DA. I'm the person who sued that guy. So Paul Howard, I'm the lawyer who has sued Paul Howard 3 times for sex discrimination. And we have two cases resolved and 1 case pending against him. I'm the one who filed, and I filed those lawsuits during the DA district race between Fani and Paul.
I'm sorry, real
Okay.
quick. Do you see yourself going in and out?
Me?
Yeah.
I see some interference with attorney here, but I see you and I see me. Okay. And I'm looking at something, it's showing me with all bars on 5G. So
yeah, because he's fine.
I think what's going on is
but
it may be just the topic at hand. Nobody wants this to be heard. Right. Look, I was on something else just to call in, and I wasn't even using my phone, and that was much earlier today. And we had something of a similar conversation, and it went out, and this was on a ground line. So it's like, okay, what's going on here? This kind of thing stretches far and wide. See, this is complicity in a system. Remember, we're talking about an accusation that somebody who's likely to be the next president of the United States is supposed to be indicted, along with now remaining 17 separate defendants, for trying to interfere with an election down in Georgia. And now that whole thing that nationally is part of the big case. So
Well,
Biden can have a chance to get Kamala Harris in place. That's going down the tube. So there are a lot of people that are against this, you and your client, because you can derail all of this, counselor. You have it in your hands. And interestingly enough, though, this narcissistic arrogance that I see with Fani Willis, that is typical of the people who are con artists. They don't think they can be caught. I've seen this before. I've even had a lot of them psychologically analyzed before sentencing, and she fits the profile. Something's wrong with this woman.
I want to
And
ask
she's
you,
trying to scapegoat your client because your client is trying to deal with justice. And I think somebody's going to get to the bottom of this.
I want to ask you, you're representing LA Pink, and you're representing Representative Misa Maynard.
Yeah, Rep Maynard. Yeah, I wasn't the person who originally filed the case for Rep Maynard against Willis. So they came to me. I looked at the case. I spent a lot of time with Rep Maynard, trying to figure out exactly what's going on, what's viable, statute, all these legal issues, and we're going to file another claim, make a complaint here soon.
Mm-hmm. And can you talk about the situation with LA Pink, because she has her situation with Sheriff LaButte. He just won to be sheriff.
He won the primary, so he has to still go through an election process too.
Right. So speak to the situation with LA Pink, because she's been on the show several times.
Okay.
Because it just highlights the retribution and corruption that is going on in Fulton County.
Yeah. So what LA Pink did, she came to me and told me the situation. She said that, she had been peacefully protesting, not engaging in anything. One day she found out that Sheriff LaButte, nobody told her about this. Sheriff LaButte, she calls her that, but I'm gonna call her by his name, LaBatt. So she told me that Sheriff LaBatt had gone and got a temporary protective order taken out on her, and that she had a hearing to show up in a couple of weeks to see if they were going to extend it. And she went to the media. This is before she came to me. She went to the media. He dismissed it because she said, Mario, this stuff is lies. Like he literally is saying and making it seem as if he talked to me and asked me to stop doing something, and that I continue to, quote unquote, tag him and his wife on social media daily. I was very critical. I said, hey, show me that you didn't do that at all in any way, even though I already know she has a right to do First Amendment. So she showed me it just didn't happen. She said, no, this didn't happen. I even have a text from his wife that told him not to try to go take the TPO out. So I happen to be the lawyer who years ago reestablished the law in Georgia that a private citizen can actually seek an arrest warrant hearing against a police officer, but you have to take additional safeguards to do it, but it can be done. So I said, well, hey, look, and this is how I tell everybody to look at this. Every year in Georgia and across this country, but let's just talk about Georgia, at least thousands of people are prosecuted or threatened with prosecution for falsifying documents, government documents. And all you got to think is welfare applications. If you make a false statement in a welfare application, if you make a false statement in any benefit program that you're applying for, you'd be subjected to jail time. And I know because people have come to me for this. So I said, hey, look, really what you can do is two things. You can have a civil case against LaBatt, and that's about money. But if you really want to hold him accountable and teach him a lesson, you can apply for this warrant hearing because he did two things. He made a false statement, according to you, on a government document, and then he filed it with a government agency, a courthouse. So she applied, because I know the law in this area very well, because I'm the one that went up to the Georgia Court of Appeals. She applied for the warrant hearing and they processed it. She's just waiting for the date to have a hearing against him.
Well, you know what? I read that application by whatever his name is. I call him LaButte after Dana and I stumbled on that porn video where he's playing gay porn, light porn. And the guy's talking about bring your butt back under these covers so I can get on top of it. But let me say this. I looked at that application, and it was for domestic violence. And what he is alleging in there, very awkwardly, is that she won't stop accusing him, which is certainly not violence. It's an abusive process. It's wrongful process, and it violates her federal rights to be free in the exercise of her civil rights. And it also seems to be, and I'm not going there because I never practiced law in Georgia, looks to be violating Georgia code. So
Yeah.
it seems LaButte, using her terms, and Miss Fani want to be playing fast and loose with the law. And I'm looking at malicious prosecution, violation of civil rights, money
Oh yeah.
laundering, IRS problems, all sorts of things, false statements to federal officials, and the list gets longer and longer. And then she, being a constitutional officer answerable to nobody, is whining about white supremacy trying to hold her down. She went and grabbed the tiger by the tail, and it looks like she's got a lot of weaknesses. So your client looks like another one of these multiple victims who happen to be invariably black folk who are getting jacked up in Fulton County. And we interviewed the only defendant that got locked up in this 17 defendant case involving President Trump, and that is the only black man who wound up getting held in jail. So what is this with Sister Girl talking about she's getting abused by white folk and seems to be the one abusing more black folk?
Well, see, this is what I tried to get to when I made the statement. You know, you can feel whatever way you want about all race issues, whatever, but the first thing you have to do as a public official when you actually abuse your authority is to take accountability for it. You got to take the accountability. You can't mask that by trying to play. It's really insulting to everybody. And it's very insulting to African Americans, because anybody thinking about it is like, okay, wait a minute. But if this, you did make the decision to put Nathan Wade in that position and pay him that money. That was a decision you made. And then, so you gave who you claim is a racist and all, you gave this person ammunition to fire at you. You abused your rights, Amanda's rights. She didn't. You're the one making these false statements, in my opinion, completely false statements about her character. You did that. You can't then try to negate all that by saying, oh, but you're a pawn in a political game, which you're in the political game trying to play political games. So, you know, it's just like, hey, let's get back to the reality of it.
Well, let's get to another reality. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there are some white people that live in Fulton County, aren't there?
Oh, yeah.
Now, if you were a defense lawyer for a white defendant in Fulton County, wouldn't you be able to holler about the person can't get a fair trial because of the obvious racial bias of the elected district attorney?
Well, this is what I have done. I have represented blacks and whites against APD on a racial policy that discriminated against everybody. This is how crazy Fulton is. They have APD, Atlanta Police Department, was split up into 6 zones, right? And then you had lieutenant, captain, and major. At the captain and major position, you could only be considered, listen to what I'm telling you, you can only be considered for those positions if you match the race of the outgoing officer. So if you were a black lieutenant who wanted a captain spot that was held by a white captain, you couldn't even be considered, only white people. And vice versa. If you were a white lieutenant who wanted a spot that was held by a black captain, you couldn't even be considered. This was going on up until 2016. 2016.
Well, almost 50 years ago. Almost 50 years ago, I worked for EEOC, and I know you can't do that. So how are they getting away with it?
Well, we ended up suing. Now we're at the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals on a whole bunch of other stuff. So it's just Fulton County has some real issues, man. Some real issues, and one of the biggest, and I even told the committee today. I said, hey, look, if you ask me what the problem is, you have a Fulton County Office of Diversity, Civil Rights Compliance Division, DCRC. They're supposed to investigate things like whistleblowing, right? Now, Amanda comes to you and says, hey, on the date that I sent a text message that told them that I'm going to sue them if I get demoted, on the date that I meet with DCRC director and actually talk about this, I get fired. But somehow none of this is documented properly. The investigation was a complete sham, in my opinion. And I said, if you really want to get proper oversight, especially in the whistleblower area, if someone makes a complaint about whistleblowing to the DCRC, the only way you can watch over them is that complaint has to instantly go out to the GBI and different regulatory agencies in order to have 3-4
GBI
agencies.
is Georgia Bureau of Investigation.
Yeah, yes,
I
sir.
didn't mean to talk over you, but people
no, that's okay. GBI,
everybody listens, not from
because
Georgia.
if not, with the DCRC in Fulton County has shown me through my experience is that if you go to them, that's like a black hole. This is the complaint's just going to disappear. So Amanda brought all these facts, and Judge Brown knows this. The timing means everything. When you get terminated 30 minutes after you go to the compliance division and complain, that is unmistakably.
I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it makes it so obvious.
That's crazy. When you get demoted,
counselor, from the mental health evaluations I had required be conducted when I had a con artist who I was going to sentence, there is a narcissistic arrogance here that says to the person, I can't be caught because I'm too important.
You hit it
and
right
that's
on
what
the
we're seeing with Miss Fani here.
Judge Brown, I said to the committee, and it's on a link. I said, imagine the level of arrogance, the level of hubris that you have to have for somebody to walk out of a meeting with a director complaining about you, and you literally perp walk them with 7 security guards and terminate them with no reason other than your employment at will. Imagine the level
and wait a minute.
You have to do that.
And then you're supposed to be the chief investigative officer for Fulton County. And this is an allegation that something is a little bit smelly there. And instead of investigating it, you go fire the person that reports to you. That's classical retaliation against somebody.
I mean, this is crazy. It's absolutely.
Look, obviously this woman skated through law school because it's just impossible for somebody to have finished up the first year of law school and not know better than this. I'm astonished.
Maybe she do know
better.
Judge
McGaffey was not
to do.
I would have hauled her ass up in front of me, said, we're going back to chambers. Everybody, we'll be back. Madam Court Reporter shut up, and I'd have chewed.
So let me
I would have unloaded on somebody that came into my court and acted like that. I think Judge McGaffey acted with great restraint, but this is just that kind of arrogance. Like, who do you think you are? And aren't you supposed to be an officer of the courts? And you are testifying in a fashion that incriminates yourself and all kinds of wrongdoing and discrimination against these people that look like you, and you're claiming that because you look like them, you're getting a raw deal because somebody is finding out what you have been, as you say, having the hubris to disguise that you're doing to your own people. This is just extraordinary. I've seldom seen anything like this.
It's just, I'm telling you, it's a level of arrogance that just demonstrates, hey, I don't care. You can't do anything to me. So it doesn't matter. I'm not concerned about timing. I'm not concerned about you just leaving the office of the compliance division. It doesn't matter to me. I'm going to fire you. I'm going to have these investigators, law enforcement, walk you out like you threatened to bomb the place or something. I mean, Amanda's like 5'3", a $120 or something. I mean, it's just crazy. Okay. And so the good thing about the hearing today is it was the first time Amanda was able to voice her story truthfully. And if anybody watches that hearing, they're going to say, hey, this lady is being straight up. She's a professional woman. She's articulate, and she knows what happened to her, and she has the proof.
Now, is she suing Well,
ahead.
let me, is she suing for back pay or anything or any type of compensation?
With the whistleblower, well, the whistleblower lawsuit comes with that is, front pay, back pay, wage violation, stuff like that. Obviously, she doesn't want her job back. She can't do that with injunctive relief, but she definitely is suing for all compensatory and punitive damages that she can. It's hard. Punitive damage is actually very hard to get because it's a government agency. So, but she's definitely the compensatory she's going for.
So,
Well, let me ask you something. Is Miss Fani still talking about she's not going to respond to the subpoena before the state legislative body?
She claims that the law, they have no jurisdiction over her. But, I learned something interesting today, and I'm going to look into it. I had put an open records request with the DA's office, and they just blew it off. And I was just like, hey, I'm in active litigation. I really don't feel like starting up more litigation about an open records request when I have subpoena power. But I found out today that she's being sued by the Open Records Division, and it was implied. I can't say that it was for sure said, but it was implied that her defense was that a public agency, the Fulton County District Attorney's Office, is exempt from open records. And I was like, I have to look at that, but that doesn't seem lawful to me. I mean, that's the whole point of the Georgia Open Records Act is that you can get you can't get all documents. There's a whole chapter on exemptions, but to exempt an entire agency, because if that is
but the exemptions, I looked into that too. I'm not giving legal advice on this, but the exemptions seem to be when there's a problem with safety, with law enforcement informants and ongoing investigations in the public interest, not to protect against purported wrongdoing by the agency itself. Next thing, if I can give you a clue, you might look into this. The agency in question, the state legislative body, provides funding for the Fulton County District Attorney's Office, and they are entitled to check on the expenses that are being submitted to them and the expenditures of funds that have been specifically appropriated to that office. So they're entitled to conduct investigation. And the other thing, I would submit that there is an exception to that. When it becomes the legislative body, they can always keep it behind closed doors, so to speak, and keep it confidential, but they're certainly entitled to it.
Mm-hmm. Y'all know
I know the legislative body needs to go through a court and subpoena her in. Somebody, the taxpayers have a right to get an explanation as to how their money is getting spent.
So I want to ask you, what's next?
So I think there's another committee hearing sometime in late June. I'm not sure exactly what the subject matter is going to be. I know for Amanda, we're trying to finish out the case. We're in discovery. We're asking for documents. Probably have to get in front of the judge a couple of times. It depends. The lawyer, I've worked a long time with the lawyer who represents Fani, so I haven't had really any problems on that level as far as with her. But we're getting documents and trying to finish out the case. But I just want to say this to anybody that's watching this. Watch that Senate hearing, because Amanda Timpson is an extraordinarily knowledgeable person. She's professional and she's being honest, and she articulated that honesty very well. Because, one of the problems in law is a lot of times you have the truth on your side, but it's the manner in which you can articulate the truth that kind of can sway the day. Watch that hearing.
Yeah. A lot of people, and I see people in the chat, have watched it, and it was like, yeah, she was a great witness. She was very credible. So also on a federal level here, Fani Willis has to answer to a congressional committee by May 29th. She has to submit a list of, where did the federal funding go to for the game unit. Yeah. And I don't know what happened. Oh, there he goes. And the sexual assault programs. So she has to submit to them a list of how, she allocated that money. Is Georgia asking for the same thing, or they're just talking specifically to,
I would assume that this Special Investigators Committee probably is asking for similar, if not the same stuff, or maybe more. But I haven't had any access to the actual subpoenas and different things like that. So I'd be speaking out of turn if I said I knew exactly what they're looking for. But it makes sense that there's going to be probably some overlap, not as far as coordination, but people thinking the same way, you know, like, hey, let's get this, let's see where these funds were going, because the whole issue is oversight. You know, what kind of oversight and reporting? And I said that today. I said, look, the statutory code for DAs in Georgia actually has some non-discretionary duties. And if you violate them, you could be subject to a lawsuit just in the capacity of a regular lawyer. That's an argument to be made for that. But the issue is how can you get better
Frankly, federal and state law, Miss Fani might get a conviction. Considering her lack of conviction, she might not get any jail time, but she might get a suspended sentence, at least on the state level. On the federal level, she's already got herself in hot water with IRS and some of the statements she seems to have made in making a false statement or false statements to federal agencies or federal officials, again, dealing with the IRS. And now the U.S. Senate wants her, the House rather, both actually seem to want her to answer to expenditures or non-expenditures or diversion of certain federal funds that went to her office. So,
you know, Paul Howard is the former DA before Fani beat him. And Paul got mired up in some GBI investigations, misappropriation, stuff like that. I don't really know the end of the outcome, but you just gotta be careful when you take these positions. You cannot pay fast and loose with this money, especially federal money, because it's so accounted for. Like you have to account for everything. Like I don't think a lot of people who are not familiar with these grant programs, it can get real sticky quick if you just call yourself doing a little bit over here and a little bit, and then it's like, okay, this is a problem.
I wanted to ask you about speaking of people getting locked up for misuse of funds. A former Georgia State Representative, Tyrone Brooks Sr., Black man, you know, he pleaded guilty to fraud and tax charges. So, you know, because I think it was $1 million in charitable funds from Universal Humanities, and you know, he was a state representative. So to your point, you're absolutely right. You know, whether it's nonprofit, whether it's federal state funding,
you got to be real careful with these grants. And like I said, when you have a program that says attending school must be Fulton County, must be Atlanta Public Schools, and then you start bringing kids in from out of state, you know, that's just something, you know, at the end of the day, it could be an easy mistake to make because you're trying to do a solid for a friend. But at the end of the day, you got to always remember this is publicly accountable money. So if somebody just does an open records request and says, I just want to see where all these kids are from, and this moment one of them is not from Fulton County, never mind, not from Georgia, not from Fulton County, could have been from DeKalb, and then you got an issue unnecessarily. So
anything else you want the people to know?
My thing is for my client. Mm-hmm. And Amanda Timpson's a great person. I think she's a very hard worker. She comes from a very difficult and complicated background, has worked really hard. But I don't like this stuff about you're being a pawn, but because this has to do, this case has been around for 3 years. Nobody took accountability. Everybody knew, and I like some of the commissioners and stuff for Fulton County, but they all knew about it. And now suddenly, because it does not favor them politically, that this case is being put out there in the public, suddenly, oh man, you're just siding up with the wrong people and you're trying to bring down a great person. No, the great person we're talking about. And hey, look, Fani Willis indicted a couple of officers that even the 11th Circuit Court of Appeal said, hey, look, this is a real problem. What you all did to this mental health kid, shooting 100 times and then a flashbang being thrown on him. She's done some things that I say, okay, but that shows some courage, right? But show the courage to be honest.
Right.
Show the courage to hold yourself accountable for the wrong you did and just move on. Don't get out here throwing around this is race, this is about race, and this is it, when what you did was wrong.
Yeah, how about you just do your job?
What you did was unlawful.
Yes.
And then instead of trying to settle it up, you getting all huffy puffy saying, well, I'm the district attorney, I'm gonna fight this, instead of saying, hey, you know what, that might not have been the best choice I did with Wade and putting him in that position, given the situation with us being romantically involved. But you know what, I still think that the focus should be on XYZ, but you won't even take accountability for anything. And that's a big issue if you're talking about public leadership, because that's when public trust, and I'm not trying to be preachy, but that's when you erode all public trust, when somebody's just right in your face and you know they've done something wrong and they just act like they didn't, and they try to divide you based on issues of race.
Right. And why do they keep bringing up Trump when Trump has nothing to do with the committee meeting that took place today? You know, Amanda Timpson, her testimony and what happened to her, that has nothing to do with Donald Trump. And it seemed like that's Fani and her whole office and the Democrats, that's their one trick pony to convince the public, especially Black people, and they keep falling for it, I'm sorry, that it's Trump and he's the racist, and that's why I'm having all these problems. And that's just not the case. She's just abusing her position.
Well, speaking of problems, since I can see myself, excuse me, everybody, I'm getting a message on my phone that's saying an unauthorized device is attempting to, et cetera, et cetera. Now, part of what I was doing is so I wouldn't use my home Wi-Fi, which I think is zeroed in, but I'm not on that. I'm on 5G, and I'm getting the same message that's on the top of my screen that says an unauthorized device is attempting.
I don't know what
that's. I don't know what, because you know what?
A lot of hackers and crazy stuff.
Haven't had any issues.
That's not the issue.
We haven't had any issues.
You guys are going in and out on me right now. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's like.
And I know you're not home, but still, I don't know what it is tonight, because we haven't had any issues for the past few shows, but it's so ironic. I have you as a guest, and we're talking about the situation that happened with Fani Willis. The judge, we know that his phone is already cloned, and so it's just a lot. And I think like what we're seeing in real time is Big Brother zoning in to try to censor certain conversations, you know, that they don't want to get out to the public. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Great.
Okay.
I can hear you great.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's the only thing that I'll end with saying is just have the courage to
hear you guys.
Okay, you can't hear us?
I can't hear you except little snatches. I'm going to go out and try to come back.
Okay.
Okay.
So, you know, I'll end by saying that's my big thing. Have the courage to say, you know what? Hey, look, people make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I would never get on this show and act like I'm perfect. But when you're in a position of authority and you're in a position of influence, especially a district attorney, because what people forget is you're the lead law enforcement officer for the entire county. And you got to take responsibility for the wrongs you've done.
You have to. But this is why a lot of people, you know, regular people like myself, a civilian, especially Black men and Black boys, don't trust the prosecutor's office or the DA's office. You know, they always look to them like they're the enemy anyway. But you are abusing your position. You know, your position, you're in a position of power. She doesn't answer to anyone. Hold on for 1 second, please. She doesn't answer to anyone, and you know, there's stuff coming out about the county jail system, backlogs of cases. That's why she asked for millions of dollars from the federal government. I don't know if she probably got money from the state as well to prosecute those cases, but she put all that money towards the Trump case. So, you know, she's blaming Trump because she didn't really get a chance to.
But let me say something about that. Let me just say this about that. Having been in the political arena from a variety of aspects, small town Clarkson City Council, but I've done opponent research, all kind of stuff. work with commercial people, making commercials, hit pieces, all kind of stuff. You know you're in the game of politics. So when you understand that, you understand how to maneuver in that arena. And so when you start, she's very aware of saying, hey, this is about race, because she knows a lot of African Americans believe that there's a race agenda and all this kind of stuff. So that's what makes it so dangerous, because you're playing on an emotion that really has nothing to do with the decision making that you're doing. It has nothing to do with the fact that you hired Wade. When I went on the brother's website, and I'm not trying to degrade him or anything, but he definitely on his website, I'm not saying he's not, on his website, he did not seem like the person that you're going to choose to prosecute a former ex-president.
Yeah, yeah.
So now that's not to put him down, but I'm just saying on his website, I thought he was an auto accident lawyer. So you did that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're getting in the political arena, because what the truth is, you're politicizing the situation in order not to take accountability for the wrong you've done. Right. And you can't do that. And anybody who has half a brain and who is very familiar with politics understands exactly what you're doing. The unfortunate reality, though, is people vote on emotion. Fani understands that. So she trouts that out. Like today, I couldn't believe the guy asked me, but I was glad he did. What do you think about people who say you're being used as a pawn? Man, a pawn? This is the case is only around here because you denying accountability. You're the public official. Right. You have all the authority to shut this down, and you refuse to do it out of arrogance. So, so you're going to shift the blame on Amanda? Well, no, the blame's on you.
Right. And I just think that for me, people would try to say, well, why are you talking down, about her, this Black woman? And that's the problem that I'm having when you have these Black people in these positions and they are abusing their position of power, but they're using race and racism and white supremacy and gender as an excuse.
Think about what's being asked of Amanda in a situation like that. Let's take what you just said. Hey, you're a Black woman, and there's a race going on, and Fani's going after Trump. So first of all, you're setting all of Amanda. You don't even know Amanda's politics. She could be absolutely against Fani. Who knows? But let's just say, but you're a Black woman bringing another. Okay, but aren't you, Fani? You're the Black woman that brought Amanda, a Black woman, down. You terminated her for no good reason. You terminated her unlawfully. So what you're really saying is, don't worry about how I abused you as a Black woman. You're supposed to set all that aside because I'm the DA and I feel I have a position that's more impactful than your life.
Right.
And that's not fair to any Black person in that position.
Exactly. And that's why I really do appreciate you coming on, because it hits different, especially to the public, when an attorney comes and speaks to, this situation. We've had, LA Pink, we have Representative Misha Mena come on here, but you know how in situations people don't want to believe the victim, but then if you have the attorney come on and vouch, like, no, these are the facts, and this is the law, and this is what was, this is what law was broken, or what violation took place. And that's very important, because I call myself a civilian outside of, people like you and a judge, because we don't know all these things. And a lot of people think that they don't have a voice, or, if being, and we could easily be taken advantage of. So I really do appreciate you taking on this case.
Anytime you want me to come on, I do a lot of cases. I got a lot of stuff going on, and anytime, like I said, I've put it down like I said, I lived in Latin America for 10 years. I've helped Latinos. I sued the United States government for dialysis care right here in Atlanta, Georgia. Got precautionary measures and contacted the State Department to get their dialysis turned back on. I've done a lot of stuff for a lot of people across race and social economic classes and all that stuff. And so that's why, you know, it's offensive to just to trot out the way it's being trotted out, because you could on one hand believe that something is racial, but at the same time you got to say, but what does that really have to do with you be doing this wrongdoing? Are you saying because if I believe that somebody's racist or whatever you saying that he is, or Trump or anybody, what does that have to do with the fact that you violated the law?
Exactly.
So it's a game on words, but more importantly, it's a game on human emotion.
Right. Exactly. And then two, when her victory party, Nathan Wade was there. And you know, and for me, I look at it, you know, you're just slapping people in the face with it, you know.
It's a primary. I mean,
Right.
she
It's a
still has to win the race. And let me tell you about that. If you really, I've been, like I said, starting in 2010, when I moved back to the United States, I worked on the first casino campaign. I've done a lot of opponent research. Okay. And if you look at how these mayor races break down, it typically broke down on demographics. When you measure out the percentages, you could almost put them right next to the percentage of white and black, and you'd almost see a match on that. Now, what's going on in Atlanta is a huge, with the quote unquote gentrification, but a lot of people are moving back into the city. The demographics are changing, and it's going to be very interesting depending on how these investigations go. If certain things get out there, it's going to be very interesting how this quote unquote Republican DA versus the Democratic DA Willis, how this really shakes out, because Paul Howard was a DA in this city for almost 30 years and he lost. So anybody can lose, and Fani beat him coming from a judgeship. So you know, you're always going to be happy when you win a primary, and that's her job, is to get out and look strong. But I know that she knows, hey, this can be a lot tighter than I ever imagined it to be. And so I really need to get everything in order.
Right. But because she was celebrating as if this was November, and I'm like, it's only a primary. You didn't really have an opponent. You know, he was irrelevant. So, and now we have the Republican challenger, Courtney Kemp, I believe that's her name. And you know, I'm gonna start speaking to her about her more often, but I just think that, you know, Fani Willis does have an uphill battle between now and November, because she has to answer to Congress, she has to answer to Georgia Senate, and she needs to answer to the constituents, her people, you know, Fulton County. So, and I do know this, when people who vote in the primary, that's not the majority who votes in November. So,
right, and the November race, depending on how all this shakes out, could just be a lot different as far as people's opinion. Because like this Amanda thing, she's gotten away a long time. And like I said, you know, I have to say the truth. I do respect some of the things that Fani's done as a DA. I do. But I don't, this right here, what she's did to Amanda, slandering her name, making what I really consider statements that just don't have any evidence to support them about her character and all that. When you really terminated her on the day she was talking to the DC, all that stuff is ludicrous. And she just needs to, and the Rep Maynard situation is crazy. I got the details on that. Sheriff LaBatt, all this, you have to have responsible public officials.
right.
You know, the whole idea of Fani getting in office was not to be like Paul.
Right.
And I can tell you right now, even though I respect Fani on some other stuff, what she did to Amanda was equal to, if not worse than, the things I saw Howard do. Just a blatant, I don't even care what you think, I'm gonna fire you right now.
So is it when you have people in these positions, is it, what do you call it? It's the saying for that, business as usual. You know, you always say, I'm gonna be different, I'm gonna be the different one. But when you get in that position, it's like you have to follow, you know.
You know, people say, you know, the saying is, you know, don't take it personal, it's just business. You know what that's really saying, in my opinion? I have no ethical or moral compass. And if I need to win, I'm going to tell you, don't take this personal, because I'm about to do anything I can to you, regardless of ethics or morals, to beat you. When people say that to me, I say, hey, man, I got to be careful about the guy that's doing that, because that means don't take it. It is personal. You don't want Amanda to take it personal that you terminated her and try to throw her whole career out of line.
Right.
That doesn't even make sense.
I want to ask you, and then too, the Fani Willis DA office, they're doing the YSL RICO case.
Yeah.
Have you been kind of following that?
I haven't. I don't know all the background. I've heard so many stories.
I'm gonna pick your
I
brain.
mean, I don't even want to say anything about that, because some of this stuff is almost slanderous. You know what I mean? As far as what I've heard about her and this and who relationships and all this kind of stuff. So I don't even know. I haven't followed it enough, and I don't know enough.
Okay. All right. So how about I have you back on soon, maybe I guess in a couple of weeks, or anything breaking.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she's gonna file look, Miss Laquana's gonna file her First Amendment case against Sheriff Labat next Monday.
LA Pink.
Sometime, LA Pink. She's gonna file her case against next week. And then when we get the date for the actual criminal application warrant hearing against them, you'll definitely get that, and I can come on and talk about that and explain it a little bit more.
Yes, thank you so much. I don't know what happened. I think he's probably, because the judge was not home, and I actually, I'm probably going to end the show and then record the rest of the topics probably later on tonight. But I want to thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you.
Had a long day today.
Yeah, these hearings, they're interesting, but I vouch for Amanda.
Right.
I mean, sometimes you get clients and you just like, they have some issues, imperfect. Mm-hmm. Nobody's perfect, but Amanda, I vouch for her. She's legit, and she got done dirty.
Yeah. And I'm glad that she have an attorney. You have the experience and you actually care.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't like this stuff. I mean, I understand how this game works, and you can accept a lot, but you can't start trying to divert attention with all this emotional. It's really invidious, because it divides people in a way that has historical implications too, and a lot of hurtful things.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. And when people are being taken advantage of, and that has to stop. So, and Fani Willis, listen, she's rubbing elbows with people in the White House. She's connected, but at the same time, that does not give you the right to abuse your position or break the law. So yeah, I just want to see her in handcuffs. I really do. And we on this channel, we are still smoking on a fanny pack. That's what I say. So we gonna until she resigns, until she's in handcuffs, until she loses this November election, whichever one comes first. So, but thank you, attorney Mario Williams.
Yeah, anytime you just reach out. You have my cell phone. Just reach out to me, and I'll make myself available.
Okay, thank you so much. Have a wonderful night.
You too.
All right, guys. So I don't know what happened with Judge Joe Brown. So what I'm going to do is call him, and probably late tonight, me and him will just record the rest of the show, and I will upload it tomorrow, or we go live tomorrow, because he's not home, and where he was at, it was just dropping in and out, so it didn't make sense. So thank you again to Mr. Attorney Mario Williams. I want to share his website. Oh, it's right here. So he specialized in civil rights, human rights attorney. areas of practice: business law, discrimination law, employment law, whistleblower cases, constitutional law, civil rights law. Yeah. And listen, if you are in Georgia and you need an attorney, call his office. Humanity, Dignity, Rights, HDR Law Firm. Yeah. All right, guys. So wait a minute. I did see a super chat that I want to acknowledge. Yes. Thank you so much to respect to you and the channel. Thank you, Mr. 1950. Thank you. Appreciate you. Anything else? No, that's it. Guys, hit the like button, share. And yeah, so part 2 will be on Friday. So thank everybody for joining us. Thanks to everybody on X. Share, like, comment below, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good night. Bye.